head into approval of the agenda, I actually wanted to show a brief video. We wanted to show a brief video regarding the homecoming event that we just had. So I'm going to turn it over to this video now, and our athletic director, DJ Goldberg.
I just want to take the time to say thank you to everyone who helped make homecoming possible. It was a tremendous group effort, and the response from the entire community has been amazing.
First, to the athletic office staff. This would not have been possible without your commitment to care for our students and your ability to stay organized. To all of the supervisors, timekeepers, police officers, and security monitors, you have done an amazing job to make sure everyone in attendance is doing their best to have fun safely while having our games run smoothly. To everyone on the grounds, custodial, and facilities crews, you all worked tirelessly to make our event spaces and scoreboard perfect for the community to enjoy. To our school building administration, teachers, and Spirit Club advisors, thank you for allowing our varsity athletes to visit your buildings to invite the younger students to their games. It was an amazing week of school spirit, and our new Tiger had the chance to make some visits as well. To our coaches, thank you for making homecoming special for your teams. The work you put in to prepare them for their events is truly special. To our district administration, thank you for supporting the Interscholastic Athletic Program. It has been great working with you, seeing you at our games, and feeling like an important part of this school community.
Lastly, to the Board of Education and Booster Club, thank you for all you do to make sure our student athletes feel respected and valued.
There's an extreme time commitment that comes along with interscholastic athletic participation, especially at the varsity level. The events we were able to provide for them last week will have a lifelong impact on everyone who participated.
Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
And now, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda as presented.
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. We will now move into reports for the first part of our meeting, and we will be hearing a report, an audit report from our auditors at Nugent and Hasler. I will turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Board, for having me here tonight to present the audit report. My name is Justin Wood, representing Nugent and Hasler PC accounting firm out of Montgomery, New York. I did just spend the last hour or so with the audit committee going over this report in detail, so I saved all the excitement for them. So I won't be going over the report in too much detail, but feel free to interrupt me and ask any questions at any point that you may have. I do want to start by thanking Dr. O'Connell and Assistant Superintendent Denise Cohen, who were absolutely exceptional throughout this process, as well as Barry Manzone, the district treasurer, who has just been an exceptional treasurer, along with Tracy, Susan Camilleri, Susan Serrato, Joni, Jackie, Risa, and Michelle, and anybody else at the district office that helped through this process has been wonderful.
Okay, I'm sorry, nobody heard me. So like I said, everybody in the district office was just absolutely excellent. Made this process very thorough, informative. Were able to provide me with the information that we needed to complete the audit. Going through the report, which is an 89-page document, which, like I said, I'm not going to bore everybody with the details, but do feel free to interrupt me with any questions or comments. There are 4 different reports that we have in here stating our opinion on those different areas. One being the financial statements themselves, the other being internal control over compliance, another being the uniform guidance or single audit, and another being a report on the extra classroom activities fund. In all cases, we submitted an unmodified, or what we refer to as a clean opinion, which is our highest level of assurance that we give. I do also want to just point out that the district is in excellent financial condition with well-funded reserves and a healthy general fund balance, and also have favorable variances within their budget, and no major audit findings to report in the management letter. And I'd be happy to open up the panel to any questions that they may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Justin? Neil?
Thank you. Justin, just a couple of questions. The first is, when you say that we have healthy reserves and a healthy fund balance, in terms of our, and pardon me for speaking less, yeah, I know, I don't want to look at you, it's impolite direction. In terms of the fund balance, and in terms of the carryover of unexpended funds from the prior year, is, in your estimation, is that a reasonable amount of carryover, or is there a possibility that if the controller were to audit us, we might get criticized for carrying over too much?
So I would, in my humble opinion, I would say you would not be criticized due to the fact that you are holding only the 4% that's maximum by New York State law in unassigned fund balance, and you increased your appropriated fund balance, which is essentially the give back to the taxpayers, which increased $700,000 or $800,000 from 2021 to 2022, and encumbrances were low, which are open purchase orders, rolled over from the previous year, and that balance is actually low, which is actually a sign of great management and administering of the budget, as well as the reserves that are there are well within the legal limits, and the capital reserve, which is the largest of them all, was voter approved.
Okay, thank you. One other question, which is more general in nature. In past years, you or your colleagues have spoken to us about things on the horizon that we might have to consider. Changes in GASB or other auditing standards that we might have to consider in next year's budget or the year after. Is there anything that you're aware of that we perhaps ought to be thinking about?
Nothing that will affect you in budgeting or your financial condition in any way. In 2021, there was GASB 84, which moved the balances in the fiduciary fund for extra classroom activities and scholarships to a miscellaneous special revenue within the governmental funds. So that was a reporting change, nothing that necessarily affected the general fund budget in any way. Coming down the horizon, there are GASBs related to leases. Again, though, that's more in how that's going to be reported on the government-wide financial statements and not going to affect the general fund budget in any way. You're very welcome.
Yeah, one more question, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
In your work with other districts, is there any program or aid package that you have seen other districts apply for that we may have not, or may have not maybe applied, utilized fully? That would be an opportunity for the district?
I wouldn't say any that come to mind. The state makes the state aid available based, some things like building aid may change based on what the district has ongoing as far as capital projects go. But I don't see anywhere where the district would have had the ability to apply for funding that they did not.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions for Justin? Well, thank you very much for coming and presenting to us, Justin.
Thank you very
We
much for
appreciate you
having me.
taking the time this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Have a good
Dr. O'Connell, good luck to you.
Thank you very much. And Barry, thank you for being here this evening. And I'd just like to close by saying, although Assistant Superintendent Ms. Harrington Cullen couldn't be here this evening, we thank Denise and her staff for an incredible process. Okay, thank you again.
We will now move into my president's report. And I would like to, so good evening, everyone. And thank you to the members of the community who have joined us tonight and to those who are also watching us via live stream. I'd like to use my report tonight just to provide the community with some information on some ongoing and upcoming events. First, we have the Harry Chapin Run Against Hunger, which is ongoing, actually. Virtual participants can run or walk at the location of their choice, which started on October 9th and will continue until October 16th. Or you can participate in person this Sunday, October 17th at Croton Harmon High School. The in-person event will use the same courses for the 5K, 10K, and fun run as in past years, and the race directors will be using rolling starts to help foster social distancing. For more information or to register, you can go to runagainsthunger.com. Next, I'm happy to share that the CET PTA will be hosting a Boo Fest on October 30th from 1 to 4 p.m. at CET Upper Field. There will be a costume contest, boo trail, food trucks, story time, games and crafts with teachers, and much more. So for details, you can find a link to that flyer for that event in tonight's agenda. And then at the high school, the PTSA will be planning to sell spiritware this month, so you can be on the lookout for more information there. And then just finally, as the community knows, we are in the midst of a superintendent search, and I'm happy to report that we are on track with our timeline that's posted on the website, and I hope to be able to provide more information at our November business meeting. And that concludes my president's report. So we will now move into hearing of the public. This is an opportunity for our community to address the board on topics related to our school district. The board is here to listen, and we want to hear from you. But please do note that the hearing of the public is not designed to be a discussion. So in most cases, the board and or administration will respond to open issues at a future date. We ask that each speaker give their name and address, direct their comments to the Board of Education, and keep those comments to 3 minutes. We will inform you when you have reached time. Tracy, our district clerk, will be keeping the time clock. And I believe there was a sign-up sheet just to facilitate things this evening, so we will start with that.
First, I have Beth McFadden.
Thank you. I'm reading a letter that we submitted to the BOE on September 28th, 2021. Dear BOE, Superintendent Dr. O'Connell and Assistant Superintendent John Griffiths, we're writing to you to express our strong support of the recommendations of the Equity Stakeholder Team, its recommendations around school climate consciousness, curriculum development, hiring and retention practices, parent, guardian, and community engagement, and professional development represent essential tools in preparing our students for a larger and deeply interconnected world after graduation. They also reinforce our profile of the graduate goals in which we teach our students to be empathetic and critical thinkers. And finally, these recommendations build on the excellent work the district has already prioritized and is currently doing around the Culture of Respect Task Force and anti-bullying campaigns. Thank you for undertaking this process with such rigor and depth over a full academic year. We urge the board to accept the recommendations of the Equity Stakeholder Team and to approve the resources to implement them. Collectively, this group consists of over 115 parents representing 206 students, or approximately 12.5% of the district student body. We'd like to acknowledge that the equity and inclusion stakeholder recommendations were approved by the BOE at the 9/28 session. Since then, the number of supporters has only grown and now represents 15% of the district student body. Finally, thank you for your work on behalf of our community as our delegates as we embark on this process together. Respectfully, members of the Croton community. Thank you. 48 Pond Meadow Lake. Sorry, my address is 48 Pond Meadow Road.
Next is Sarah Gary Oshiro.
Hello, my name is Sarah Derry Oshiro, and I'm the parent of 2 kids who attend CET, and I'm offering these comments in support of the proposals that were provided by the equity stakeholder team. 41 Morningside. As many parents here likely know, getting information about your kid's day at school can be like pulling teeth or cross-examining a hostile witness. So last week when I picked my kids up from after school, I was surprised when both of my children excitedly announced that in library earlier that day, they read a story called Alma and How She Got Her Name by Juana Martinez Neal. They were ecstatic to share with me that the protagonist of that book was a young Peruvian-American girl, just like they are, who had lots of questions about her many names. They explained that the librarian read this book to their class, to their different classes, because it was National Hispanic Heritage Month, and that they shared with her and with their classmates that they too are Peruvian American, like Alma. Seeing that spark of joy and of their pride in having their identity reflected in a story that was read to their class filled me with immense gratitude. I appreciated the commitment that many of the teachers, staff, and administrators to making all children of different identities feel seen and included in their classrooms. This experience serves as a small reminder that the proposals written by the Equity Task Force and adopted by the board a few weeks ago are not an indictment of the Croton-Harmon School District in its current state. However, this experience also serves as a reminder that there is still important work ahead of us. The goal of these proposals is to make sure that moments like these are not cabined to a special Heritage Month of the year, or to certain teachers who may go above and beyond to incorporate these goals into their curricula. The proposals are premised on the fact that our children do better and learn better when they feel seen, with people like them reflected in the content around them, when they feel like their identities matter and their differences are not only tolerated, but are valued and worth celebrating. Thank you. I would also like to read a short statement that was prepared by Jennifer Gleason, who is a parent of CET children and lives at 8 Prospect Place. To the BOE, at the September 28th working session, Joshua Diamond shared powerful data around students' perceptions of their school environment. Specifically, he shared that 55% of students who responded to the 2019 School Quality Survey said that students are treated unfairly on the basis of race and ethnicity. 61% of students said that students are treated unfairly on the basis of gender and sexual orientation. And 40% said that students are teased or picked on about their real or perceived sexual orientation. This information is painful to hear and is certainly a call to action. Thank you, Joshua, for sharing. I applaud the administration team for repeatedly sharing their commitment to center the voices of young people in this work. Without amplifying their voices, we will miss critical information about their experiences and perceptions. I fully support the goals of the equity team, and I thank you for your continued efforts to improve our schools. Let's get to work so that all school and community members affirm the individual and diverse identities of students in our community. Thank you, Jen Gleason.
Silverglade reader, and my address is 1308 Half Moon Bay in Croton. Good evening. I am the parent of 2 children. I have a 6th grade boy at PVC and a gender fluid freshman at Croton High School. I've been a member of the Croton community for almost 10 years and have had the current honor of being a part of the Equity Building Stakeholder Team. First off, I just want to thank the Board of Ed for all that you do in service of this community. You are seen, you are appreciated. I thank you very much for this work and for the opportunity to speak tonight. I wanted to directly speak to some of the fears that have been voiced by community members and which I'm concerned are the result of misunderstanding equity work and the team's recommendations. Particularly the fear that we are talking about drastic changes, which we're not. Cuttin is already working towards a lot of these goals. I understand that people are worried that this work is going to shift our curricula into one perspective that is going to pigeonhole students into believing certain things, and that those certain things might lead people, our children, to lose a sense of pride in America and potentially feel ashamed of being white. And I can see how those fears can be very intense to experience, but fortunately, equity work is not about this. This fear of losing American pride is predicated on the idea that the stories and historical figures that we've traditionally studied are the only sources of American pride available, and that if we lose or change those stories, we'll have nothing left to feel proud of. But the great news is that when we include voices that represent the true diversity of this country, there will be plenty of stories of survival and triumph, discovery and invention, leadership and heroism to inspire plenty of American pride. There have also always been white abolitionists and members of the dominant class who have worked for the rights and equity of the traditionally marginalized. So there will always be heroes for our children to learn about, and the goal is for every child to see themselves reflected in at least some of these heroic stories. Why is it that we have to work so hard to incorporate these previously unheard voices? Well, when we look critically, we can see that for generations our American curriculum has been told from essentially one perspective and towards a specific American ideology. We know that the vanquished, the conquered, the enslaved, the murdered, they didn't get to write the history books. By and large, the books were written by the winners, by the dominant ruling class, from their perspective and with their agenda of highlighting good acts, hiding their bad ones, and getting folks on board with an ideology of exceptionalism and flawlessness, which is easy when you're only telling part of the story. So the work of the equity team is quite literally to move away from a single perspective leading to a specific ideology, and rather toward providing students with a vast array of source material and teaching them how to evaluate information and think critically about it, letting our kids make informed decisions about where they stand on certain issues rather than to have those conclusions drawn for them. And yes, kids are going to learn that historical figures are not one-dimensional good guys, but rather complicated humans, just like they are. They made mistakes and bad choices and also did amazing things. They had positive impact and negative impact. They were imperfect, just like our kids and their parents and all of us and our country.
I'm sorry, you're at time.
So
can you finish your
one sentence? Yep, I'm on my last sentence. I was just going to say that we're all imperfect. Our kids, our parents, this country, and teaching children the complicated nature of humanity and the diverse nature of America will better prepare them to navigate this diverse and complicated world and feel confident about themselves, no matter what characteristics they were born with. Thank you so much. Sorry.
If I may, as people come up, if you are reading from your phone and your phone is close to the mic, I think we're getting feedback. So if that happens, try to keep your phone a little bit away from the mic so we don't get feedback and we can hear you better. Thank you.
Point taken, not reading from my phone. It's good. My name's Peter Goodman. I live with my family at 44 Mount Airy Road in Croton. I'm the dad of two kids, one at CET and one at PVC. We are very recently newly arrived in Croton, so it may seem strange that I'm standing here tonight, but I'm just here to say thank you very much for this work that you're doing in the face of controversy in a moment where our country, of course, is full of all sorts of accusations, recrimination, misinformation. I mean, it's always been difficult to do the work of any kind of local governance. You all are serving at a time of extraordinary difficulty, and you're taking on something that couldn't be more important. So bravo to all of you for digging in. I don't see this, my family does not see this as just some sort of political position or some parlor game to debate. It's very personal. My wife is Chinese American, she grew up in Queens. Our kids have a very strong and valued Asian identity, and in their last two schools, they were subject to a bunch of really very damaging racist taunting. Kids pulling slanted eyes, making fun of Chinese language, the usual stereotype. And this was really debilitating, and it produced initially, even though they are very strong in their Asian identity and very positive about it, a sense that maybe they did something wrong. And the schools where they were attending weren't, I think like most schools, not entirely set up to deal with this. And there was a kind of reflexive, how could this be happening here? We're such a great community, we're full of good and decent people, like most communities. And I think that was true of those schools. It's not that the kids who did these things to my kids are bad kids, or that their parents are bad people. It's that we have to reckon, and I'm speaking now as a middle-aged white guy, we have to reckon with the reality that we've all been marinated in a society that has been dominated by the stories and the jokes that may seem harmless to us inside the club of white people, the preconceived notions about other people, and this is just very damaging, and it causes children like my kids to internalize it as a sense of shame. So we have to give them a toolkit. We have to reckon with these issues, and we have to bring them to the fore, and we have to educate. That's what we do in schools. We educate. So I applaud you for taking that on. And I also want to say that in terms of this opposition that is inevitable when anything serious is discussed in this particular moment in society, I think we can all be united in wanting quality education for children. That part's pretty simple. And it's obvious that what you all have proposed, not proposed, have now adopted and are going to be implementing, is kind of like the basic, let's get on with living in the current moment in American history kind of toolkit for what we need.
Goodman, I'm so sorry, you're at time.
Fair enough. Final sentence. Like, if the roof is broken, we invest in repairing the roof. If our modes of operation are in another century, we update and move on to the present. And that's what you all have done, and I really applaud you. Thank you for that.
Colin McGowan.
Good evening. My name is Colin McGowan. I live at 34 Sunset Drive. It's my family. We have a 4-year-old son who moved here a year ago for the quality of the education in this community. My views might be somewhat different, so I wanted to share them. First, I consider myself a proud American and taxpayer, and moved to Croton with my family for the quality of this education community. And I believe in raising my son in a district where he has the freedom to feel proud of who he is and learn without a one-sided view. I've been following these issues very closely, having attended every stakeholder meeting and board meeting on this topic. And I wanted to share 2 observations for parents or others here that were not present and may not have had the benefit of that process. To state the obvious and what others have said, I care most about the experience of my child and that he feels comfortable from a social and emotional standpoint at school, has an excellent educational experience that prepares him to think critically, and has the courage to lead and be on the right side of history in the best sense of our country. I found the process to be incredibly diverse. I actually disagreed with many people in the stakeholder group, but that's one of the benefits of having an incredibly diverse groups with many different points of view represented to arrive at the recommendations that were put forth and refined by the administration. So I wanted to thank the board and the administration for what clearly is a multi-year process that continues to focus on the well-being of our kids and excellence in education. It has and will continue to be informed by members of the community, parents, and others to take their input in mind. And any argument to the contrary certainly is not my experience whatsoever over the past year or so in every meeting and following the issues closely. I also want to end by just thanking parents, other parents, guardians, and our teachers for not being fearful, right? Back to American ideals, not being fearful and having the courage to share their perspective and listen to others that may feel differently. And I think that's one of the things that makes this country great, the courage to lean into difficult conversations, knowing that the truth will set you free. So really appreciate the work and thank you.
I apologize if I don't pronounce your last name right. Alicia Murphy Wartell?
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Murphy Wartell. I have two sons in the district. One is going to be in kindergarten next year, and one is in second grade. My second grader really wanted to join me tonight. He didn't seem to care that it was past his bedtime. Oh yes, and my address is 20 Glengarry Road. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon of thanking all of you guys. Most of you probably started work before I even woke up with my kids this morning. And you will probably still be working after I go to sleep. And I want you to know that not only do I appreciate it, that the community appreciates it. I hope that you remember that. I know it's been a really, really hard year. I am in very strong support of DEI. I think that you'll find that the majority of people majority of families with children in the school district are. Unfortunately, many of them could not come to these meetings because they have young children, so they've asked some of us to come and not only speak with our voice, but their voice as well. Our children deserve and need this implementation in order to become fully formed adults and members of a society whose issues that we cannot possibly predict. Their communities will need them and will need the strong bonds that this initiative will help them form. And these bonds will be formed by what they learn now. So thank you guys for your implementation. I would ask that the board, administration, and community not be swayed by the highly vocal but minority opinion of those who oppose these initiatives regionally. Instead, please feel assured that the majority of us are behind you, and we support you, and we support DEI. Thank you very much for listening this long and for inviting us tonight to speak with you.
Theo Snowsberg?
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Thor Snider, and I live at 98 Hastings Avenue. And first, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to all the work that you do year-round to educate my two kids, 10 and 7. And I'll keep my comments short so more people can speak. But tonight at dinner, my 10-year-old was asking, what's this meeting you need to go to? So we explain the work of the board and how that supports your education. And we talk about a lot of history, and we teach a lot of history in our house. And my daughter said on the way out the door, why don't you just tell them that if we don't learn the whole history, we can't learn from it? So I thought that was very astute for a 10-year-old to sum up a lot of great points, that were made, which I totally agree with. But I think that coming from a 10-year-old, that's the type of thinking we want our kids to grow up with. So, thank you.
Karen Weiner?
Thank you very much. My name is Karen Weiner, 94 Mount Airy Road South. And I have a 6-year-old at CET, and lucky enough to have a 4-year-old in the UPK program, which we are so thankful for, and we love that that was put together. So thank you for everyone who worked on that. I am in complete support of diversity, equity, and inclusion work in the Croton-Harmon School District. We have to give the best education to all students, and this is the path forward. I will not let our kids fall behind in learning to be global citizens because of others' fear. I will not let fear hold us back, and I hope you won't either. It seems like you don't. The equity work our district is boldly proposing will be adopted eventually. Those of us smart enough to react first will see the most benefit. Thank you to everyone advocating for all our kids.
Nate Bilbray? Sorry, Bilbray? Bilbray. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Nate Bilbray. I'm a senior at this high school. I live on 29 Lower North Highland Place. I'm here to say I support the DEI education because, I don't know, as a high schooler, someone who actually goes to this school and walks these halls every day, I feel like I know what goes on in this school, and this is Croton's a pretty liberal, open place, but even still, every day, I hear like little slurs and microaggressions from like white students towards minorities, and even myself growing up as a Jew in this community, people make anti-Semitic comments to me. Honestly, every week it's something that's like brought up pretty often. I have a lot of black friends who people, I don't know, say like derogatory terms and slurs, like even go as far as to say the N-word in front of them. And I just feel like even though it's such an open, liberal place, there's more work that needs to be done, and there's more learning that needs to be done, which is why I think the DEI education program is good and needs to be implemented into Croton school districts.
Stacey Bilbray?
Hi, I'm Stacey Bilbray. I live at 29 Lower North Highland Place, and I'm a very proud mother right now because I'm super impressed with my son and coming up and speaking his piece. But I also have 2 other children. I have a 1st grader in the district as well as a sophomore. And I'm here to support the DEI initiatives in the Croton-Harmon School District. And I just feel like, in simple terms, and many of us don't need to hear this, but I think some of us do, diversity means a wide range of human qualities and attributes. Equity means fair treatment and equality for all, and inclusion means recognizing, understanding, and accepting all. And I don't think this is something that should be up for debate. This is not something that should be politicized. As a mother and educator, I believe that it is essential to begin this work from the time kids are young. As a school district, it is our responsibility to make sure that all students feel accepted and safe in their environment. I know that this is not the case for all students attending school here. Children are faced with racism, anti-Semitic, homophobic comments through social media, and in person. Additionally, many students encounter microaggressions from their peers. We need to create upstanders in this community and not bystanders. And as a parent looking in, we've created a lot of bystanders. Our students need this important work so that they have the education and the knowledge to support one another and to become kind, empathetic citizens, global citizens who can think critically about their world and see the perspective of the other people around them. Thank you for
Hi, I'm Connie DePass. I live at 10 Goldberg Drive, and I'm a senior at Cuttin High School, and I've been a part of the school's district since 3rd grade. I know I don't have a lot of time. I know I don't really have that much to say, but I just want to start off by saying that I'm one of many students at CHHS who want change in the district. This conversation is very personal and important to me, and I feel like over the course of my academic experience here in Croton, I feel like I'm repeating myself when I say that there's a lot more room for improvement within our schools. My experience taught me that while students like me can be a major force for racial progress, when pushing higher education administrators like you all to create safer, more inclusive, and anti-racist learning environments, change often comes slower than I'd like. In fact, many of the demands Black students today, like me, are the same ones Black students made decades before. The difference now, amid a raging pandemic and police violence that are both disproportionately taking Black lives, is the level of disgust and anger among Black students like me who are calling out their institutions and saying that enough's enough. I just feel like administrators need to stop getting lost in respectability politics and understand that the voice they need to listen to is students. And it can't just be the work of your diversity and inclusion officer, it needs to be the work of every administrator in our district, every student in our district, every parent in our district. I believe that we must disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed, and it's really important to have uncomfortable conversations like this one in order for change to happen. I value the work that has been done, and I've seen a lot of it, but whatever you have planned, it's not enough, and at the end of the day, we must work together to ensure that we're making Croton an inclusive place for all students. As a senior, I don't want to leave Croton with feelings of uncertainty. I don't want students like me to have to go through what I've been through here. And it's time to listen to students directly affected by your choices. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is and I live at 320 Grand Street. I'm a long-term member of this community. My daughter is Ella Erskine, the valedictorian from 2019. So thank you so much for all of the work that you've done to provide excellent education for both my children, John Erskine, who's currently a junior in high school. So first off, I came here really to show my support for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to thank the board and all of the thoughtful work that has been done, as well as the equity stakeholder team. I was not expecting to hear so much support from the community, and so I do want to take a moment to thank the community for coming out to show the support. I'm going to speak from a personal experience. So I came to the US as a child refugee from Laos, lived in a refugee camp for 2 years before moving to Queens, where I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. Life was pretty busy for myself, my family, to become established in the US, and I would say that I did not learn about the totality of American history until about 3 years ago, when I started doing community and business development work, where I work currently. And so through this self-education, and this is education that I did have to teach myself, just in terms of the role that Chinese Americans have played in American history, as well as the decades of oppression that our Black Americans have suffered. This is all part of American history. And so it's important that our children understand the totality of our history, because that's what makes us special as a nation. Thank you. Ross?
Hello everybody, I'm Ross, Campbell's husband and Ella's and John's dad. Really quickly, thank you for doing all this good work. It's a great first step. I think there's probably more work, as some of the speakers have already alluded to, that needs to be done, but it's a wonderful first step. And I'm here just really quickly talk about Ella. She's now graduated, she's at Tufts University, and she's really learning about who she is, where she fits in this great nation for the first time. So you guys need to be able to do that for every child that walks through these great corridors. Give them a sense of identity and belonging, linked to this community as well as their own communities. I believe you can do this, and good luck in that work. Thank you.
Gwen Sargent?
Good evening. Gwen Sargent. I'm speaking. I signed up for my husband too. I thought we were just supposed to sign up. I had no idea I was going to have to. And so we couldn't leave. My husband's hungry. We need to go home and eat. But I'm very glad. Oh, 193 Cleveland Drive, right across the street from CET. We've been here for 30 years, raised 2 sons here, very happy with the education. It's a wonderful educational environment for the most part. Our kids did just fine here. But they were also here from nursery school all the way through. Some kids that have come here from the city of color have had a harder time here. We're happy that we moved here in Croton. We have a lot of great friends here. I currently still, work in with the school district. So I know the inside and out, having had kids to come through here, and I'm a substitute teacher. I know most of your kids here. I've been doing subbing for 10 years, part of the fashion industry. It's a great community. Of course, there's work to be done. This conversation about whether or not inclusion should, and what has happened in American history, the fact that we're even discussing whether or not it should be taught in the schools. I think it's ridiculous. Throughout the United States of America, I think it should be taught. And I applaud you guys for having this forum, having this conversation. I'm very impressed with our community. I'm very happy that we came tonight to see the support, and just keep up the good work, everyone. It's going to be all right.
Ann McPeake?
Good evening. My name is Ann McPeake. I live at 12 Park Trail. I've been part of this community since 2018, so a fairly recent transplant. I have 2 children, a 2nd grader and a 4-year-old who will be at CET next year. I have been moved, wowed, and humbled by the comments that have preceded me. And I am not here to wow anyone. I'm simply here to express my gratitude to the equity stakeholder team for the work that they put into these recommendations, which strike me as exceedingly reasonable, and to express my gratitude to the BOE for accepting these recommendations, adopting these recommendations, and simply to voice my support for equity and inclusion in the district. Thank you.
Andrea Berry?
I'm just going to keep this really short because people have spoken so beautifully tonight. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to, Andrea Berry, 14 Morningside Drive, Croton-on-Hudson, to the board, because I, as a former board member, really understand how difficult these kinds of, how difficult the political pressure can be on the board. And again, I really give you a lot of gratitude for you continuing this work. I just wanted to talk about, just very quickly, about how I've been struck when I've been hearing a criticism about the DEI work, about how the conversation is often based on you know, people who have third-hand information about our school. I hear a lot of comments that make it clear that the people who are afraid or who are criticizing don't know our schools at all. So I would just like to ask those who do have concerns about what is going on in our school to really delve in and find out about how child-centered our school is, how hard and how caring our administration is, what our motto is, what you know, our goals are for students. Because if you truly understand that, you're really not going to be afraid about what's going on. So just wanted to add that, and again, not only do I want to thank the board, but I want to thank the community who has come out and really spoken so eloquently tonight. Thank you.
Cheryl Goldberg?
Cheryl Goldberg and my husband Marshall Goldberg. We're at 11 Alexander Lane in Croton, and we'll keep it short. We laud the work of the Equity Stakeholder Group and support the decisions of the Board of Education to move forward. We're very proud of our community for coming out and speaking on behalf of the work that you've done. Thank you very much.
I don't have much to add to that. Cheryl did, in fact, sum up the essence of how we feel. I would note that it's been something like 15 years since I had been a part of this board, and diversity was something very different then, and we were barely scratching the surface of it at that point. So I'm really proud that this has now become an important initiative of the Croton schools, and I would also say that I'm also aware, as Cheryl didn't say, that similar nights like this occurred in Yorktown, Lakeland, and Clarkstown South. And there have been ramifications to that, and that's some of what brought me here. You have it in your hands to just keep yourselves together as a good, solid board with the right values, and I encourage you to do so tonight and in the future, as you have been. Thank you.
Edward Riley.
Madam Clerk, I have some handouts for the board. I'm Ed Riley from 110 Truesdale Drive. You had 48 committee members of that committee, DEI committee. I think 48 of them are here clapping. You have very little diversity in this town. It's a left-wing town. Of this school board, 6 are Democrats. There used to be 7 Democrats. The board of the trustees is controlled by the Democrats. The county is controlled by the Democrats. The state's controlled by the Democrats, and the national government's controlled by the Democrats. You don't have a diversity problem on race. You have a diversity problem on opinion and political beliefs. And I've been the recipient, both violent and nonviolent, of the love of your high school students and your junior high school students. So tell me about it. DEI, this report is an amateurish, poorly done, poorly put together report, and you should admonish the superintendent and assistant superintendent for doing it. It is based on CRT with little output, little input from other people. You've used 3 consultants. Every one of them was terrible. You started with David Kirkland. David Kirkland wrote the DEI program in the State Department of Education. He is NYU Steinhardt. He said, this is CRT in his August 4th meeting. Why are we denying our babies? This is our baby. This is CRT. Why are we denying this? Your second consultant, which you've now hidden, you took her off your chart. She was on the chart. Now she's off the chart. Natalie Zwerger, who's a nut job, and we will quote from her books. The reason you took her off is you heard that in the other school districts they were quoting the works that she wrote, and it's so despicable that you took her off the list because you heard what was happening in other districts. The last thing, and this was the coup de grace, is when the superintendent of schools and the assistant superintendents of schools brought into this district Marissa Raganese, a street punk, a racial, I don't know what, demagogue from Yorktown, from BLM Yorktown, and Yorktown for Injustice. And their trademark is calling people racist, then calling their businesses up to have them fired. And that's why I don't see more people here. 10 people have told me they're afraid to come here because they're going to lose their job and be called a racist. You have a problem, you have a diversity problem, and you have a fear problem in this district, and you better damn well address it. Okay, please give my handouts to the board. I want to substantiate everything I said. It's one for each person.
There'll be more.
Anamika? Anamika.
My name is Anamika Patnaker. I'm a resident of 80 Cleveland Drive with my family. I have 2 children in the district. I'd like to thank the board for adopting the recommendations of the Equity Stakeholder Team, of which I am a proud member, along with a dedicated and thoughtful group of teachers, administrators, parents, and community members. I'd like to address actually a question that came up indirectly at the September 28th meeting where our recommendations were discussed. A question that's come up in the community as well. Why do we need an equity committee at all
if we have teachers who are doing the work of introducing writers from different cultures already, if we have teachers who are teaching historical figures whose stories haven't been widely told already, why do we need to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion when we have a culture of respect task force to address bullying already, and building planning councils to give parents voices in decision making at the building level already? We have all this stuff. I think there's one simple reason. It sends a message to our students, including the ones who spoke here tonight. Thank you for coming to speak tonight. It sends a message to those students, families, school administrators, teachers, staff, that the district hears them and sees them. It makes it clear that we as a district are invested in preparing our students to thrive and contribute to a global society. It makes it clear that we as a district are committed to DEI, which in my reckoning stands for dialogue, excellence, and innovation. That's what we're here for, that's what we want for our children, and I appreciate that the board is helping us move forward in that direction. Thank you.
That's the end of our list, but did other people might have come in after?
That is the end of our list that we had. Is there anyone else who would like to come up for hearing of the public? We will have another hearing of the public session toward the end of our meeting. Okay. With that, we will conclude hearing of the public. Thank you very much to everyone who spoke. We will now move on to our superintendent's report, and I will turn the microphone over to Dr. O'Connell.
Well, thank you, and good evening to everyone, and thank you for coming out this evening. And to our students, Katia and Nate, thank you very much for once again being very, very articulate and coming out this evening to share your thoughts. I'd also like to highlight our Pledge of Allegiance this evening. That was from the Basana Walter classroom. And what I love so much about many of our classrooms, but the Basana Walter classroom, is they call themselves the Waltsanas. So thank you for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. And again, I want to say thank you to the community for attending this evening. We appreciate you taking your time to join us, to be away from your families this evening, and for those that are watching this evening as well. And for taking the time to be so thoughtful with your comments. I always try to begin my superintendent's report with a quote that resonates with me. Tonight, though, I don't have a quote, but I'm going to summarize a short passage that I came across online. Unfortunately, I do not know the author. But it does make me think about the messages that we send to our students each and every day as we focus on our world, our attributes of the Croton-Harmon profile of the graduate, and creating a culture of respect. So it says, we may not agree or see eye to eye. We may not have the same beliefs or the same priorities. That doesn't mean I don't care about what you think. That doesn't mean we cannot get along. That doesn't mean you are any less deserving of my kindness. In a world where opinions may be divisive, let's remember our humanity and treat others the same way we want to be treated. We don't have to agree, but we should always be kind. So tonight, and as with every October, I get to share my goals. And that's always a highlight for a superintendent because they can become extremely reflective of the work that is before them. Our school year starts in July. I know it sounds funny, I'm sharing my goals now, but for some reason in Croton, we always do it in October. So my goals, of course, first and foremost, always remain on our Croton-Harmon school opening plan. I always say to our teachers and our administrators that you make everything look seamless in our work. And I know some of you here tonight are also on our reentry task force. In order for something to be seamless in the work we do each and every day, to open schools in a COVID time, in a pandemic, our teachers and administrators and all of our staff are working so hard to make it look that way. But each and every day, what they need to bring, their A game, in order to maintain our protocols, which are extremely numerous, to make sure we have a safe environment.
So I thank everybody for all the work they're doing with the school opening plan. Again, it remains our day-to-day focus. And I thank the School Reentry Task Force for the work that they put in over the summer behind the scenes to help us review our protocols. I'd like to thank our Department of Health and Dr. Meir for everything we run by them. We discuss, we dig deeply, and look to ensure that our school opening plan, which is also on our website, has all of the necessary protocols to keep our schools open. My second goal always is a curricular goal, to strengthen and deepen the work of our strategic coherence plan by communicating the next step of integrating our tri-state's recommendations with goals and actions. This is one of particular excitement because what deliverables we will see is across the board interdisciplinary, or what we like to say transdisciplinary, problem-based learning. You heard tonight from some of our speakers, and you continue to hear from administration, teachers, and the board, is our commitment to the Cuttin Harmon profile of the graduate, which is at the core critical thinking. We heard about critical thinking in some of your comments this evening. It is critical to the process, to use the word again. And our teachers in district will be working on creating these cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary units so that we can see a true integration of all disciplines while students are solving problems. Of course, as we heard a lot this evening at the last board meeting, our Board of Education in January, one of my goals would be with the new superintendent in his or her new role to help transition in any way the Board of Education deems it appropriate. So that's a summary of my goals. It's truly an honor, and I always introduce myself as the proud superintendent of Cuttin Harmon Schools because of the Board of Education, because of the community, because of our faculty and staff, but most importantly because of our students. And that concludes my superintendent's report for this evening, and I thank you for your time. So sorry, it was a part 2. So I asked Mr. Griffiths if he would give us a COVID update on anything COVID, testing, etc., if you would be so kind.
I almost thought I had the night off. Thank you, Dr. O'Connell. Yes, it's always been a large large part of my responsibility to oversee all matters COVID. As Dr. O'Connell said, by highlighting it at the forefront of her goals, it has been a commitment to our district to do everything we can to get through this pandemic in the best ways possible. Some of the highlights since I last had the opportunity to address this board and this community. As we know, we have been entering an ongoing relationship with Westchester County to bring our COVID testing to the next level, which is now using saliva-based pool testing. We had spoken of our plans to initiate pool testing with a baseline test where we would test all of our volunteers. We were able to do that on September 24th, where we were able to, in one morning, administer over 300 tests throughout all 3 schools. Since then, we have been communicating to our community that we would be continuing this surveillance saliva-based testing on a weekly basis. That has not started yet. There has been delays on the county's part because of their urgency to have their initial baseline testing happening throughout all of the Westchester school districts. I am told that we are positioned to start hopefully this week. Our dedicated testing days will be on Fridays. Once again, we are hoping to get confirmation tomorrow that we will enter our first week of surveillance testing this coming Friday. In the absence of the county's program, we have solely burdened the responsibility of conducting the weekly mandated testing of our faculty and staff. As the board will know, and I can remind the community, There was, on the part of our governor, a mandate to have all faculty and staff tested with an option of them opting out with the proof of vaccine. Support to date for that level of testing that our assistant principals, as building COVID coordinators, as school nurses, have really been doing an incredible job to make sure that that's been happening on a weekly basis for 4 weeks in a row now. I'd like to thank my assistant, Jackie Meyer, who prepares this data from my weekly upload to the New York State Health Commerce System, so that data on the part of the district is available to everybody through the New York State COVID report card. Once again, that COVID report card is a summary of all lab-reported and school-reported testing conducted here on behalf of Croton Harmon faculty, staff, and students, as well as a breakdown of any COVID positive cases that we experience in our schools. Lastly, on the topic of COVID, we are always, as stated many times, in a position as we're looking at traditional events that our school would host to evaluate them on an individual basis, to carefully think about how to best bring that event to the schedules with safety at the forefront of our minds. We have been hearing from parents that they miss being in our schools, especially for parents. Some I heard tonight with primary age kids, there's been very, very few opportunities for them to connect with the school and the building and get to feel a relationship with that place where their kids have spent so much of their day. There was no practical way for us to have in-person open houses with the mandated social distancing requirements that are in place for adults. We did, however, begin conversations with my school specialist at the Department of Health, with our district physician, Dr. Mir, to explore the idea of in-person parent-teacher conferences. And we did make a decision to go forward with several levels of mitigation in place with those in-person events for our parents to meet with their teachers. But just to really reiterate to the board and to communicate to our community, we would only do that if we felt that there was a real solid plan in place that was mitigating any risk factors with having those parents in the building. So just to let you know, a quick rundown, 4 parent-teacher conferences at all 3 buildings. There will be a medical screener that will be completed by all parents prior to them entering the building. We will be requesting that parents do wear masks at all times whenever they're in the building to reduce any potential spread. We will have our HVAC, once again, complete with the MERV 13 filtration operating at all time, along with windows open. Once again, our HVAC system works at a high capacity where it's able to do it 4 air exchanges, complete air exchanges on average every hour in our classrooms. We're also going to up the social distancing. We're asking our teachers to set up stations where we can maximize social distance from 8 to 10 feet between the parents and the teachers. And of course, at the conclusion of the event, we are going to not only have our nightly cleaning protocols, but introduce electrostatic spraying in all rooms on that evening for extra precaution. So we are looking forward to those evenings. I know it is a moment that parents enjoy, that the teachers really like to meet parents, to be able to give early indicators of how their kids are doing at this point in the school year, and we're very, very happy to have that plan in place.
Thank you, John, and I'll just continue on mitigation strategies. As you can see, our tents are up outdoors. Classrooms are encouraged to be outdoors as much as possible. Lunchtime, children are encouraged to be outdoors as much as possible, etc. But because we have so many of our students and so much time being spent outdoors, we do have, on any given day, students all over, eating lunch, participating in recess, attending class. Our outdoor classes are very popular, and we are just so fortunate to have such beautiful places. But at the same time, it does come with a security challenge for the district. So on September 30th, I did send out a K-12 alert, just reminding people that community members during the school day, folks are not to be on school grounds. When I discussed this with the village manager, Brian Healy, he reminded us that, please tell your families, please make use of the village recreational facilities, including Croton Landing, the River Walk, and the neighborhood playgrounds during the school day. So we thank you, but again, just for our community members during the school day not to be on school grounds for security purposes. Now I think that concludes my superintendent report.
Thank you very much, Dr. O'Connell and Mr. Griffiths, for that information. Next up in our agenda is something I'm very excited that we have a new portion to our agenda for the first time this evening, and that will be our student ex officio member report. So I'm going to turn it over to Lucas Valentine for the first time to give us his report.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming out. I want to say a special thanks to my classmates, Kaya and Nate, for speaking. It was great. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the kind of short video that we saw from the athletic director showing our homecoming week at CHHS, with night games being a huge success as a participant and an attendee. It was amazing to see everybody out there, especially now. On Friday, October 8th, the high school held a very successful club fair, separating the clubs into groups attended by a specific grade level at each time. This led to more exposure of clubs, especially to underclassmen, allowing for more time for clubs to connect with individuals and interact with them. The fall musical Annie was cast and is underway and is set to be performed this November. Croton Harmon is proud to announce that senior Nishant Dash has been named a semifinalist in the 67th Annual National Merit Scholarship Program. Nationwide, the pool of semifinalists represents less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors and is based on their scores achieved on the 2020 PSAT and National Scholarship Qualifying Test. The National Merit also commended 8 students from Croton Harmon: Emma Castro, Joseph Constantine, Sarah Crossi, Shoshana Daly, Eleanor Hardy, Fiona Moore, Luke Robinson, and Kevin Tu. Several other students were also recognized by College Board for their remarkable academic achievements and performance on PSAT and their AP exams, including Amin Kimdar, Julian Canoe, Rose Shupak Diaz, Alexander Soranio, Sarah Baldion, and Sophia Meyer. And the PSAT is set for tomorrow at CHHS for the juniors. That's all I got. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Lucas. All right, and now we will move into new business. So we will be discussing the proposed NISBA bylaw amendments and resolutions. And so I'm going to turn this over to Omar Manassi, who is the chair of our advocacy committee.
Thank you, Sarah. The advocacy committee met to discuss the 30 some odd resolutions proposed by the New York State School Board Association, which is going to be hosting a virtual annual business meeting on Monday. Of the 30 resolutions, there were 5 that we wanted to discuss with the full board and the administration to make sure that we are properly representing the board at this meeting. I will be asking Mr. Haber to address some of these resolutions, but before that, just address Resolution 16, which talks about proposing to abolish the state school level expenditure reporting. In talking to the administration earlier today, they pointed out that this reporting is redundant to some other reporting that they currently do, and that they spend an inordinate amount of time on mandated reporting. And with that, I suggest we vote in support of this resolution to abolish that level of reporting. Mr. Hager.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. And as I think might have been said before, I will be representing the board at the meeting next Monday from 4 to 8 p.m. Anybody who wishes to observe, there will be some way to log into the broadcast or the Zoom meeting as an observer. I'm not sure what that is. If you want that information, let me know. Today I met at a virtual meeting with the West Putt Town Hall, which is a monthly meeting to discuss various issues. They had previously had a session which I could not attend on the resolutions, so we're basically going on our own feeling of what we wish to discuss. On the agenda, it mentions resolution number 8 and resolution number 9. And we just wanted to bring this to the board's attention to see if the board had any particular feeling about resolution number 8. Resolution number 8 is proposed by our neighboring district, Hendrick-Hudson. And that resolution and resolution number 9, which is proposed jointly by our board and by the Albany City School Board, who asked if they could join us in our resolution, address the open meetings law and meetings that are conducted other than in person. Resolution number 8, which is, as I said, from Hendrick-Hudson, addresses one issue and one issue only, and that is supporting updates to the open meeting laws to allow for school board trustees to attend meetings remotely via video conferencing without disclosing their location and without permitting the public in-person access to an individual trustee's remote location. And we address that in our resolution number 9 as well, as along with a couple of other areas that we wish to advocate for, or wish NISBA to advocate for. And to remind everybody, those include having committee meetings being able to be conducted remotely, rather than have to have a fixed location designated. And let me get the exact wording here. And also that we would provide enhanced opportunities for the conducting of business at a meeting through the use of remote meeting technology, which is a very general catch-all phrase. The question really is, if we are proposing our resolution, are we in opposition to the more narrow resolution that our neighboring district, Hendrick-Hudson, has proposed? We wanted to bring that to the board for the thoughts. My personal feeling is I have no problem in supporting resolution number 8. We would also support resolution number 9. Wanted to make sure that everybody was on accord with that. Seeing the thumbs up, there is one other issue that comes with resolution number 9. The Syosset School Board proposed an amendment to our resolution. And their amendment states that what they would like our amendment to say is, or they would like the resolution to state, is that if there is to be a people attending remotely to a meeting, which is permitted under the current law, we could do that so long as a majority of the school board members are present in person at the fixed meeting location. And their rationale for the amendment is, in totality, having the majority of board members present in a public location ensures the public is provided access to observe the deliberations of the majority of the board members present. Our committee concluded that we were in opposition to that proposed amendment because if all of the deliberations of the board would be in a public session, we live stream, and people can always go to that fixed location. If there happened to be, for whatever reason, 3 of us in the community room and 4 of us participating by Zoom, that would not limit in any manner the ability of members of the public to observe either personally, in person, or by live streaming the proceedings, or by seeing the live stream of the proceedings. So if the board is in agreement with the recommendation of the committee, we will speak in opposition to the motion to amend by SIASA. Yeah.
I actually, I like that amendment that they had.
Okay.
And I would just use this meeting as an example. All the amendment is saying is that at least, in our case, 4 members of the board should be present in the physical location where the community would be present. And I know in your example you said 3, but to me, if there was only one person sitting on this stage tonight and we had the entire community come out and then everyone else is on a screen, I don't feel like that's doing justice to the spirit of the open meeting law, which is to conduct your business in a public place where the community is available to see you conduct your business. So I would say the quorum should be present where you're asking the public to appear. And then if there are others that have to be remote, it should be okay. I don't want our meetings to become remote, Brady Bunch meetings instead of having this opportunity to engage with the community by being present as a quorum in front of the community. So I kind of like the amendment, only with respect to business meetings, not, of course, committee meetings.
Let me just respond by saying that you raised some very good point. The only issue would be then that even if we had a quorum participating in the meeting by remote or in person, if we only had 3 people there and we had the other 4 remote, we could not open the meeting. We would be in a situation where, for example, a business meeting, this one or another one, would have to be postponed. And if that's the sense of the board, then we will take that position with when that amendment is proposed. But that's the countervailing thought.
So the question I have regarding that is the way that this is written, or the way that the amendment is written, does appear to be broad in that it would be any meeting that would be subject to open meetings law, versus necessarily the board's business meeting, right? I think if there was a distinction for committee meetings and work sessions, I think that might provide the flexibility that would make that amendment okay. But again, that would mean making an amendment to the amendment. So.
Yeah, and first off, I will say in a virtual meeting of 200 plus participants, you cannot we're not permitted to make an amendment to the amendment as we could if we were in person. I would add that that with regard to what you just said, a lot of times we conduct some business even before we start a work session, or we have a special meeting that we would call for a particular purpose. And I really think this rule, wouldn't be just for, quote, a business meeting. And it's kind of difficult to say any meeting at which something is voted on, this rule would apply, and if it wasn't, then it wouldn't apply. So I think really you've got to be consistent for all meetings called of the board. You are correct that the way this is written, the way it's written, since it refers to item C, it could cover committee meetings as well. So the bottom line of it is, let's hear what people think and either support it or not.
I'm somewhat in opposition to the amendment, and because I think that this is a case where being as prescriptive as that is actually gets in the way of the actual ability of the public under certain circumstances to actually participate. because I think that if you consider the crisis over the past 18 months, the ability to meet remotely actually made it possible for us to conduct business, made it possible for the public to connect in and view our meetings, and they did to an extent that is greater than they have ever done before. And so I think that while it is good to strive to have as much of the board present physically as possible, I'm not sure that that's something that needs to be, in this day and age, mandated. Yes, it is wise, and I think it's something that we ought to perhaps be part of our own district policy, should this become law, this changed open meeting law. But I think that it's something that should be sort of up to district to decide how best to implement it in the way that works well with their community.
No, it's on. As a committee, we were in support of resolutions 8 and 9 and opposed to the amendment.
That's correct. So the question really is whether the board would like me to express opposition to the amendment proposed by SIOSIT or not. I think Iris is in favor of that amendment. I'm not, and Josh is not, and I will, be guided by the majority of the board.
I'm not in favor of the amendment either. And to speak to that, I think it's just what we were trying to create, or what you were trying to create when you drafted Resolution 9 was to allow the board flexibility in a situation like the pandemic. So to Josh's point, I think the amendment actually creates that restriction. That doesn't, goes without saying that, we should be conducting this business in the most available way to give ourselves access to the public. But this particular resolution, I think, was drafted, and Neil, I don't want to speak for you, but to respond to the limitations that we saw when we had to implement some of these virtual meetings. So I think to expand the availability of that and to not limit the restriction, this is an unnecessary restriction, but that was what we talked about in the meeting. But that's, I understand, and I have a lot of respect for your point about giving the public access and adhering to the open meetings law that way.
So I'll add that I am in support of what Iris said about having a majority present for the community's sake. I do have a couple questions just about the details. So around this amendment, when you said the majority of members, would that be a quorum or just the majority of the members that would be in attendance of the meeting at that time?
I assume that would be a majority of the membership of the board, because when there is, I can't speak for what SIOSIT was trying to do, but I would read it that way because there are certain provisions in the law, such as that a board acts by a majority of its members, not those who are present. So if we had 4 people present, a 3-to-1 vote is not passing something. So I think what they're talking about is have, a board of 7, have 4 present. Board of 9, have 5 present. A board of 5, have 3 present.
So that could get tricky on during meetings where there might be less attendance to need a majority. And also, did you mean that this would apply to the committee meetings as well, or just the board meetings?
The issue is,
and that's board committees, right?
Is that the way this is written, we are asking for them to advocate for provisions eliminating the requirement that a public body subject to the open meetings law, and that could be villages, towns, counties, etc., identify the location from which a member of the public body will be attending, and eliminate the requirement that members of the public be accorded the right to attend at such remote location. And then they added the word, so long as a majority of board members are present. So what that says to me is, the way it's written now that I've looked at it again, because it modifies Part C of our resolution. If we did not have a majority of our members in the room, the community room, then we would have to allow the public to know where the non-present people, the remote participating people are located, and we would have to allow the public to go to those locations.
I don't know that was necessarily the intention of
I don't know, that was not their
intention. The way
intention,
it's written.
but just the way they've written it, that's how it reads. And their intention really was to have a majority in the room, but the way it's written, as an attorney and a draft, someone who drafts things, it could be read that that's what they're talking, that's what it says, whether or not that's what it means. But I think the point basically is it would apply to every board committee. It would apply to towns, villages, etc. Because that's what we're talking about. So I hope that answers your question, Mary.
I just point out that, of course, these are recommendations to NYSBA. These are the resolutions. They're telling NYSBA what we want them, what they will be lobbying for in Albany to our legislators. So this is, for the benefit of our public, this is somewhat at an arm's length from what would actually become the law. And once this gets to NYSBA, once these are adopted, if they are adopted by NYSBA at the general meeting, then NYSBA will go and lobby for it, and realistically, there's going to be a whole nother round of wordsmithing that happens as the legislation is actually created. And then it comes back to us, and then we get to write our own policy implementing it.
So do you want to take a thumbs up?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So thumbs up if you agree with the committee recommendation to oppose the Syosset amendment. And then thumbs up if you support the Syosset amendment. Okay, so if it is actually put up for a vote, we will vote the way the board has stated.
And so for 16, we just want to do a thumbs up on that one. If we agree with what Omar mentioned earlier, that the business official and the administration are recommending that we support this.
Yep.
And then the last one from the board.
So there's actually two more. One is a resolution that was resolution number 24, which was proposed by Ardsley. And that resolution, which we voted, was not recommended by the Resolutions Committee of NYSBA, and which we voted against last year. And of course, we have new board members, so it was felt appropriate to discuss again, provides for the following. What it states, in essence, I shouldn't say in essence, it states that we would, that NYSBA would seek to encourage laws, regulations, and policies that promote alternatives to school districts when purchasing non-instructional services that do not give the BOCES an unfair competitive advantage. The impetus for this has proposed a year ago by Ardsley is that if your BOCES provides services, such as printing services or whatever, they are our Board of Cooperative Educational Services. They are basically our co-op. And we're part of that co-op with our other Putnam, Northern Westchester boards. And so and we get COSAs, state aid, right, for certain things that we get to there. Sometimes our board has decided the services are better gotten by another avenue and we won't have a COSA. Ardsley a few years ago was looking for a new superintendent, and they wanted to use Putnam, Northern Westchester to do their search. Since Southern Westchester, which Ardsley is part of, Southern Westchester BOCES, had to approve a waiver of their right as Southern Westchester to provide this service so that Ardsley could come to Putnam, Northern Westchester. And Southern Westchester BOCES said no. So they could not come to use the services of Putnam, Northern Westchester BOCES. When a BOCES does not provide those services, we can go elsewhere, as we did with our demographic study, which we got from Western Suffolk. And as we do with state financial aid, where we get from Questar, Region 3, right, Main Region 3. So that's the impetus of what they are talking about. We obviously have the right to go outside of the BOCES system for things that we're not going to get state COSA on, we're not going to get state aid on it in that way, but we wanted to discuss, given that background and given the encouragement in the resolution to not give BOCES an unfair competitive advantage, as it has because it can provide a COSAR, whether we wanted to support this resolution. The Resolutions Committee said, kind of as I described, that BOCES should promote and enhance cooperation between and among school districts and other BOCES instead of competition. The committee also noted that there's a waiver process that you can utilize and you can purchase from private third parties. So that's something that they felt meant that this resolution was not something that the Resolutions Committee would support. Now I know in our discussion, Omar, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Omar, you did say, if I remember correctly, that you wanted to discuss this, and there may be support on your mind for resolution number 24. So I guess let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And I'll treat the relevant points of this paragraph. That the committee, I think you read this part already, but the committee noted that a waiver process currently exists and is commonly used for school districts to purchase services from other BOCES when appropriate. Also, that districts currently have the ability to purchase similar goods and services from private third-party vendors, if they so choose. So the question to my fellow board members is, do the processes around being able to essentially be in a free competitive market, are they adequate enough that we would say, fine, there are alternatives that exist, or do we want additional avenues?
Worked well for us. It has worked well for us. We've been able to work with our own BOCES. We've been able to cross-contract when we've needed, and we've been able to go out to other areas when there wasn't a COSA. I do recognize the issue that you're raising, Neil, about needing to get a waiver. I mean, that piece is a little thorny, but we have been very successful so far with the avenues we've pursued.
Unless anyone else had questions or...
Dr. O'Connor, can I just ask you, when pursuing a waiver, is there a long delay? Is it a hard process?
I don't recall submitting a waiver. I think we've been able to work within our own BOCES. We've been able to cross-contract. I don't recall ever personally needing to submit a waiver for a service.
And I think from the information that I have heard previously from Ardsley, is that is a situation that comes up where their BOCES provides the service, i.e. superintendent search services, for example, and is reluctant or resistant to giving a waiver because they want that job.
Mm-hmm.
They want that role, whether they paid for it or otherwise. So that, in a way, does not foster cooperativeness. It fosters competition,
yes.
and that's the issue that came up in the Ardsley situation. I don't think we've ever sought a waiver, although this would be something that Denise would be better able to answer, because quite frankly, if there's services provided by Northern Westchester BOCES, either we use them, or we decide, you know what, we can get it cheaper, or we can get better services on the private market, and we just go to the private market and purchase those services or enter into those contracts.
I just want to, go ahead.
I'm sort of disinclined to suggest that we advocate for anything which is going to essentially foster competition between BOCES. I mean, this is supposed to be a collaborative relationship. And BOCES the BOCES themselves are a collaborative relationship between school districts. And at the same time, I would hope that the BOCES themselves would be collaborating with each other. And I think not having this provision, the requirement for a waiver, is a inducement for BOCES to collaborate with each other and to sort of work out these differences rather than essentially become yet another open market.
And the other thing I was going to ask Dr. Carr, I thought one of our communications firm weren't they from Southern Westchester, Southern BOCES?
So, are you thinking back to syntax?
Yes.
Like that?
Yeah.
It's very possible.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I think my
It's
recollection
very
is there was no need for in response to Anna. I don't think we had to do a waiver. I think our BOCES just said, go ahead and use them, even though they provided the same service.
So that was an informal waiver.
Yeah, I don't think, I think we have a different BOCES than Ardsley, and ours may have a different.
This is a private company.
Yes, I know, but
they may have been
went through
contracted through the poster.
It's also been my experience when you're speaking of communications, was it after we used syntax, how nicely Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES worked with us as a district because we wanted to have more of a hybrid model versus solely using BOCES. And I found them, Josh, to your point, collaborative versus competitive. They were extremely collaborative to work with us to get us the product we had wanted.
My only comment to all of that would be that it sounds like our system works because our BOCES works well, but to the extent that we want to support the Ardsley School Board, where their situation is not as fluid as ours, I would recommend you support this proposed resolution and allow the work to happen that would allow lobbying to, as it says, encourage laws, regulations, and policies that promote alternatives.
So given that discussion with the advocacy committee, are you still recommending this? Or has your position changed at all?
No, we're not making recommendations on it, we just brought it for discussion, so it's really, in the end, is if you wish me to vote in favor of the Ardsley resolution, fine. If not, fine. Let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs up for each.
Just to give you some insight, we went through the recommended resolutions and amendments, and if there was ever anything that we weren't in unison with respect to the recommendations, we said we would bring it here. So it wasn't necessarily that there was something that was highlighted there. We might have just thought like, well, this is something the board would want to get a little meatier and have some conversation about.
And I just want to add one other thing. Things that we did not bring to you are because we felt that we were in accord with the recommendations of the Resolutions Committee to support or oppose. But if anyone has a different opinion on any one of the others, if we find out, if you have it, bring it up now so I can talk about it, but I assume not because nobody raised it to Omar. So,
24. Are we supporting the resolution?
24, do we want to support, to support the Ardsley resolution? Thumbs up. I think it's to support the Ardsley resolution. So we have 2.
Yeah, I'm sad if the administration feels there are adequate recourse, then that's fine.
So, wait, Omar, are you saying vote in?
I am saying we do not vote. We go with the recommendation of the vote.
Okay, so I think Anna and Mary said they would support the Ardsley resolution. So now the question is, who opposes the Ardsley resolution? And I think we've got 4 and 5. Okay.
Now, late resolution.
Late resolution number 1, which came from Monticello, which we did not take a position on to recommend to the board, is a resolution that states that the School Board Association support adding arts and music education as a common school branch that should be incorporated into the public school curriculum to provide a more well-rounded education for children. And because it's a late resolution, the Resolutions Committee did not make any recommendation either. I think the question we didn't really know, and perhaps this is something that Dr. O'Connell and Mr. Griffiths can speak to, as to what does it mean to be, quote, a common school branch to be incorporated into the curriculum, and how do we see that, and what, how should we consider that?
I'm at a loss.
I think the key implication that we would have to consider is an assumption on my part that if music was a common school branch, at CET we would have to insert it within the school day rather than offer some programs before school. We'd have the regular core music during the school day. My question would be, with any services that exist outside of the school day, would there be any implication to schedule?
Well, their first line of their rationale says, while New York State education regulations dictate arts and music education, it is not a statutory requirement. And then they go on to say, if there are times of fiscal difficulty, schools have dropped arts and music. They want the law to say, you must have arts and music, which of course would mean in curriculum, during the school day, etc. So, in thinking about it, we have a lot of districts with a lot of different issues, whether we would support statewide a mandate that all districts incorporate arts and music education into curriculum based on standards standards set in regulation by state ed. Right now, state ed has only one area that I understand they talk about a minimum amount of instruction, right? Which is physical education, 120 minutes a week. So, you know, are we saying that we want regulations that are going to say arts and music shall be, you know, X minutes a week for every student? That is what seems to be where this resolution is going towards.
It's extremely verbose. So if we could like distill it down a little bit, it's still putting a mandate on a very much a wide array of ways in which people are meeting what they think is important in their education. We believe in music, we believe in the arts, etc., but do we want to be mandating minutes and etc.? I don't know.
I think I would support this resolution if it wasn't a late resolution.
In what sense, John?
And the reason I think I would is I kind of feel, yes, they've provided a rationale, but I kind of want, one of the nice things that NYSBA does is they provide their analysis. NYSBA, when they decide on which to include, there is a certain element of vetting, and that sort of forces a little more clarity than you get in a late resolution like this. That's not been reviewed by NYSBA's staff, essentially.
And I would add to that, NYSBA said that if you have a resolution and we receive it ahead of time, before the committee, we will discuss possibly modifying the resolution or changing. I said resolution number 9 and number 10 to the NYSBA staff ahead of time, and I said, you know, if there are ways that those should be changed to be more understandable, etc., I'll be glad to hear it and consider it. And they said no, resolution 9 and 10 are fine, but I think Josh makes a good point.
Well, to that point, respectfully, if they're allowing for late resolutions, I don't think that we should preclude them from considering them just because if the process allows for them to be accepted, then I think it's our work to offer them some consideration. I agree with you. I would love to know what NYSBA thinks about it, but unfortunately, we don't have that insight. But they did allow for it, so I won't penalize them for that, I guess.
Well, and I think, Josh, to your earlier point, these are a set of recommendations that NYSBA would then take and work into their advocacy platform for the coming year. So at that point, some of these things may undergo some bit of morphing and refinement as well.
I don't think they undergo as much. I think the time when they really undergo refinement is when the legislature, more accurately, the staff of the legislature takes it and turns it into legislation, to written legislation. So it usually happens in the education committee or among staffers on the representatives in the education committee, and usually in consultation with the education department, but not always.
And in general, I just worry about taking away flexibility of districts in general. I mean, it's hard enough as it is, and we build in our music, we build in our art, and I think we do a very, very nice job with it. But to take away flexibility, that's very difficult because every district has different scenarios, a different set of guiding, principles, etc.
And I'll add that while I think we all support this, I definitely support art and music education. My concern with the resolution as written is it doesn't address the funding component. So if we were to fund art and music education, does that mean we're taking funding away from other educational initiatives? I mean, I would love to support this as an amendment in the future, maybe discussion with NYSBA to address all these issues that were raised today.
I think I totally concur with what Omar just said.
Anyone else have any other comments regarding late resolution 1? Okay. Should we put it to a thumbs up, thumbs down? All those who want to support the resolution 1, thumbs up. Okay then. Neil?
Given that no one thinks that's it, we'll do the other way around. So.
With that, I think that is all of the resolutions that were up for discussion. Is that correct? All right. Well, thank you very much to the Advocacy Committee for your work in going through. We discussed 5.
I'm sorry. Just one final comment. I just want to thank Mr. Haber for his diligence and thorough work on resolution number 9. I think it's...
And number 10. I think number 10 may be more significant.
I'm sorry, let me take it back. I thank Mr. Haber for all his work on the resolutions. I think he really tried to provide the Board of Education with as much flexibility as possible while staying true to the spirit of the Open Meetings Law. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. I want to add 2 things. One is that at the meeting today, the town call meeting, we didn't have an opportunity for me to discuss further resolution number 10, which involves child safety zones, but the executive director did indicate that this was a very important and significant resolution for the flexibility of school districts to establish child safety zones when needed because of particular road configurations, etc. So I'm hopeful that will pass. The last thing, as we always say, is sometimes things happen at the meeting, and you have to, I've got to roll with the punches. Then I suppose since it is virtual, if anybody's watching and they text me in the middle and say, "Don't say anything," like you're about to, then I'll get the text.
Yes, Neil, don't say anything.
It's impossible for me not to say something.
All right. Well, with that, we will then move into 3.2, which is a benefit agreement. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the amended benefit agreement as presented.
So moved.
Second. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. And 3.3, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the side letter of agreement between the Croton Harmon Union Free School District and the CSEA Custodial Bargaining Unit as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. We will now move into ongoing business. Recommended action that the Board of Education conducts a second reading and adopts Policy 9700, Professional Learning, formerly Policy 9280, as presented.
Second.
On the question?
Just to explain, this is a policy that is being rewritten and updated to provide for the provision of professional learning for our professional staff, teachers, administrators, and other professional staff in accord with the current requirements of the Commissioner's regulations in that regard. We do prepare an annual professional staff development plan, professional learning plan, which we approve every July, and we should, and I guess we have to start that next year process now or pretty soon, and we should make sure that we follow the Commissioner's regulations and our policy in that regard.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. We will now move into donations. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $300 from Xiao Pan as a contribution to purchase books about Asian American Pacific Islander culture and community for the Croton Harmon High School Library.
So moved.
Second. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Xiao Pan, for the donation. We very much appreciate the support for our students. We will now move into instructional personnel. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the instructional personnel appointments as presented. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We will now move into the consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda items.
So moved.
On the question?
Yeah, one thing, I know I moved it. I didn't have an opportunity to review all the minutes. If there are any changes to the minutes, which will probably be typographical for the most part, I'll let the board know, but I just didn't get to it this weekend.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. And now we'll move into the closing of our meeting. So this is our second hearing of the public time. If we have anyone who would like to come up and give a statement. Yeah, you can come to the podium, as in before, if you could state your name and address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Jones. I reside at 81 Morningside Drive. I'm a, excuse me, 23-year resident of Cuttin on Hudson. My son attended all 3 schools here. I am a twice elected member of the Cuttin Board of Education. I am so proud of the members of the public who spoke tonight, even the dissenters. After all, that's what diversity and inclusion is all about. Diverse opinions, making sure that all voices are heard so that it can be pulled together and we can move forward as a community. I'm even more proud of the students who spoke tonight. My message to all of you is listen to the children. Listen to the children. They both expressed not only a need for DEI work, such as it's called now, but a sense of urgency. The children do not have the luxury of time. They get one shot in every grade. They get one shot in 4th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade, 11th grade. They don't get to do it all over when the adults figure out what the right thing to do should be. It is up to us to make their time count. That is why you are here. That is why we are here in the audience. We need to make the time that the children spend with us count. One of the students tonight mentioned that she has waited for years to have some of these issues addressed. The other student mentioned, he was a senior, but he had mentioned all of these, as he described them, microaggressions that take place during his school life, his school day. The children are speaking to you. Listen to them and do what they ask. They are not the ones who set policy. You are all the ones who set policy. They're not the ones running the stakeholder committee. Other adults are doing that. Listen to the children. Let's not fail them. DEI work is really hard work. And I commend the work of the folks who are engaged in this. So, get your rest, take your vitamins, stay focused, and use your position as administrative leaders of this school district to accelerate this activity. Listen to the children and get your work done. Thank you.
Good evening, Tom Zuthwell, 47 Alcott Avenue.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat your name?
Tom Ozuthwal, Ozhuthhual. I wanted to say thank you for your efforts for DEI. I'm obviously very in support of it. I wanted to just share a point that when we were looking at schools and houses, my wife and I came from Manhattan, but I'm actually from White Plains. But when we were looking for a place to live, Croton was actually not one of our top choices just because of the lack of diversity. That was something that it took some time to get over, but in the end of the day, you know, the pros outweighed the cons. So ultimately, in the end of the day, we don't regret that decision. It's a wonderful place to be at. But the fact that this is at the forefront and it's a priority is amazing, and I'm very happy to hear about it. You know, some of the challenges that I have, I'm a product of private school, all the way from grammar school all the way to high school. So, you know, I went to an Irish Catholic school. You know, I was one of 2 Indians. There were 2 black guys, 2 Asian guys. And it was an all-boys school. I own a prep. And so, growing up in that situation has always been a challenge for me. I've always had a scenario where I'm like, oh, I'm not white, I'm not black. Where do I, you know, fit in? So that's a challenge that, you know, my kids will have. I have 3 kids, 2 of which are in the district, a kindergartner and a 2nd grader. And, you know, I was bullied a lot growing up. I was a much smaller guy back then. And you know, like some other people have mentioned, you know, there are some hardships with, you know, like a lot of times people make these little microaggressions, you know, little racist comments here and there, and you have to deal with it. And like for me, the bullying took another level. I was a patriot. I decided to serve my country. I joined in before September 11th. I was on the USS Stout prior to 9/11. We were on a deployment. I was part of the Enterprise Battle Group, and I was the only one of Indian descent. I'm Indian, by the way. And you know, when 9/11 happened, I was on a destroyer. The destroyer only has 330 people in comparison to an aircraft carrier that can hold 6,000. And so, for me, you know, that was a hard time for me. It was a hard time for most Americans, but the fact that some people in my crew viewed me as the enemy, attacked me, tried to throw me overboard, you know, was something that was really hard for me to deal with. You know, fortunately for me, I had a very amazing commanding officer that handled it real well. You know, and that was right in the beginning of my service. So he gave me the opportunity. He told me I could either get out because he understood the strain that caused me. But he said, or I asked that you look at this as an opportunity to kind of take a step in the other, take a step the other way and use this as a strength and move forward, which is something ultimately I did. You know, so for me, that bullying experience has caused me my own level of PTSD, and so for my children, whenever they're bullied or if they are the cause of bullying, I will make sure to squash that, and at the same time, I make sure to tell them not to take it, you know. And I was like, if you have to stand up for yourself, you stand up for yourself. And I was like, so an opportunity that you guys are doing right now with DEI and getting other kids educated could save someone who was in my situation, right? Like if other people stood up for me in that scenario, and when 9/11 happened, and stepped up and protected me, my whole situation would have been different, right? And so,
you're at time,
okay.
So can you conclude your last statement?
So ultimately, in the end of the day, I want to just say I'm so happy that you guys are going this way. I support what you're doing, and keep doing a great job. Thank you.
evening. My name is Mike Roberts. I'm at 33 Hunter Place here in Brooklyn. I have 2 kids in the school district. My oldest one is just starting kindergarten, so we're just at the beginning of all this. I just wanted to echo a lot of the things that my friend Tom said. I view him as a big tough guy, you know what I mean? It's kind of eye-opening to see that we all carry around products of our upbringing and our previous experiences in life. I get the privilege of walking through my daily life, usually unburdened by confrontations or anything like that. But when I was a kid, you know, I am half Mexican, I'm half white, and I would experience life very differently depending where I was. If I was going out with my mom somewhere, often being at the receiving end of some of these microaggressions we've talked about before, as opposed to going out with my dad somewhere and sailing through life very easily. It's kind of eye-opening to see the context, that everything is sort of situationally dependent. Everything depends on who you're with and where you're coming from. And we also chose to, you know, move to Cuttin and bring up our kids in this environment which seems so idyllic and so, you know, this is like the American dream to be in such a nice place as this. But we would be doing our kids a disservice to not prepare them for the realities of the world that they're going to grow up and face in the wider world outside of Cuttin. And that's really all we're looking for, is not a political stand, but just an acknowledgement of reality. The world is very diverse. We want them to grow up and go beyond this small community out into the wider world, and they need to know what they're prepared to be facing. So, thank you for all of your good work. Thank you for staying late, and keep it up. Thank you.
Do we have any other community members who would like to speak? Thank you to everyone who came and spoke to us earlier tonight and just now. And that will conclude our hearing with the public. Now we will move into board reports. So I have on here actually communications, but we're meeting tomorrow, so I don't think we have anything to report just yet. We heard from advocacy earlier this evening, and we also heard from the auditors. The audit committee had met with us prior to that. Do we have any other board committees? We've got one coming up for board development as well.
And so the only thing I will say with board development, please be on the lookout for a meeting link for, what do you call it, a doodle. Where after we meet, we'll be sending out dates for our 4th and final retreat. And because we would love to have you join us, so you will also be included on it if your schedule permits.
I have a very brief report from the audit committee. We met today prior to this meeting and reviewed the report that was presented tonight. And the one thing I just wanted to echo what was said by our outside auditors, which is that the report was a very positive one. There's only one finding, and it was something that was able to be addressed very quickly and easily. It was not a significant something that came out of a single audit, which is new. There's a lot of nervousness that comes from having a single audit because we don't have them very often. This is the first one I think we've ever had, and just because of the change in the numbers were such that we came up to the point where we needed to do that, and there was only a single finding out of that single audit, which is really an amazing testament to the quality work that is done in our business office. And I want to thank Denise and Barry and all of the other staff in that office for the great work that they do.
As far as policy is concerned, the only report is that we will have to arrange to get together soon. We have policies that are sitting, waiting for us to work on because of the number of meetings that we have had over the last few weeks. I have felt that it's probably not the best idea to try to throw another one into the mix, but we will. I mean, I could do it, but other people complain. So we're going to try to get together soon.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any board committee reports? All right, so that will move us then into polling of the board. Does anyone have anything for polling?
I have a couple of things actually. Lucas, I want to welcome you again. I know you've been here, but I was wondering if we could have a conversation about how to get feedback from our students on their needs, and you know, using Lucas obviously is a component of that. The second thing I wanted to focus on at some point in a later work session is student volunteer hours and giving students access. I know that we have a program where people can go and they can register, but maybe something that would be a little more interactive, or like ping them if a new system came up or something like that, because I know that's very real, and when it comes on and the hour requirements come on and the different deadlines are staggered, it's I think it would be beneficial to our community resources to also be able to have last minute additions or things like that, and then of course to all of our students to give them the opportunity to fulfill those volunteer hour requirements. And then the last thing I wanted to just say is I was at the sports complex today watching modified tennis while the girls' senior soccer game was going on, and the boys' varsity soccer game was also going on, and there was a field hockey game also happening up at the top of the field, and there were lots of people who were lost and couldn't know, and it was very challenging to kind of explain how to get to Manus and, you know, hug this path and go down there, and there were cars coming in, and maybe at some point, or even in the feasibility study that we've approved, but probably before then, maybe even just like temporary signs that we could put in it, or out, something that would say like, you are here, this is how you get there, to just really, for student safety too, because there are so many different students, and there were cars on the pathways today, which was not unreasonable, but from a parent's perspective, I was there with my younger children, it was definitely hectic for that gated off area that you kind of like let them roam free in. That's it.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Just to pick up on what Anna said about signage, I have two things come to mind immediately. First is, we don't really have signs that give directions to get to Spencer Field. There's nothing that says, maybe at the top of the hill, where Spencer Field is, where Manus is, where Firefighters is, and that's something that probably we can do pretty easily through the work of our own Buildings and Grounds Department. So, what would really be good, and this is the longer range thing, is if as part of a sports complex we actually had something like, at the sports complex, a digital sign with events, where they are, time, who the opponent is, but that's a longer range thing. I'm not saying we do that now. I just wanted to report, I've already talked about going to the West Putt Town Hall, which I did today. One thing that some board members may be wondering about is we will not be having a West Putt regional dinner this year as we have done in years past. There will be probably in January a virtual presenter of who would have been, the person who would have been giving the speech. They are hopeful that they will have a end of the year school board dinner and an annual meeting, as we have done in the past at Crabtree Kittle House. So that's kind of on the radar. Also, some of us are attending the meeting on Thursday, a discussion on DEI. I know I am. I think Iris has signed up as well. What Karen Belanger said is that there will be the Peake Skill superintendent will be talking about the work that they've done. There'll be another superintendent there, Jay Rona, will be talking about policy issues, and Jackie Burton will be talking about communications. It is expected that probably on a week from Friday, that is a week after the meeting, they will probably have some kind of a roundtable debrief of what was discussed on Thursday the 14th, that people can attend and kind of share ideas, experiences, etc. on the subjects that are going to be discussed on the 14th. The other report, I attended last Thursday the CET Building Planning Council. We've started the work for the year. I guess as there are things to report in the future, I will bring that to the board.
Wonderful, thank you, Neil. Anyone else for Colin? Okay, then we will move on to items needed for the next Board of Education meeting. So our next Board of Education meeting will be our work session, which is next Thursday, the 21st. Everyone, we've established the essential questions and provided those to administration. And we will be sitting down to look at student performance for the in the 2020-2021 school year.
Can I slide in more questions?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. I'll send you some tonight.
Thank you. And that is it. So that, yeah, Phil.
A couple more polling items. The first is that I've signed up to attend the pre-convention virtual law conference on October 21st and 22nd. I will, at the very least, provide everybody the opportunity for the materials that are presented, and if people would like, provide kind of a report of what we learned in 7 hours of law stuff. But it's not only law stuff; they also have some practicalities related to legal issues. The other thing to note is that because the convention was canceled, the in-person convention, there will be some events that will be available on Monday, October 25th at no cost to go to attend virtually. I don't recall exactly what those events are or the time. I think perhaps we could ask the district clerk if she's got anything on that, if she gets something to distribute it so if people are available on that Monday and have some time to attend, that might be good for us.
Yeah, so in lieu of the conference, they will be having several sessions on that Monday. So I would encourage anybody who has the availability you can contact Tracy. She will get you registered for that October 25th event by NISMA. All right. With that, I believe we have finished up unless anyone else has anything else. And I'm stepping back and I'm falling. No one else? All right. With that, we will be moving into executive session and expect that we will adjourn immediately following. So thank you again to the community who turned out tonight to be at the meeting and to those who are watching live stream. Recommended action that the Board of Education enters into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you very much.